everyone, it's Stephanie here with a video for my favorite things. In today's episode of MFTv, we are going to be using the newest May card kit called Sketchy Flowers to create a fun card using all of the cardstock colors in this great U stamp set that comes in the kit. So I've decided not to use any of the floral stamps. There is a beautiful floral stamp set that comes in this month's kit called Sketchy Flowers, but I decided to make this card simply based on the sentiments and just the cardstock colors that come in the kit. So what I did is I just went off camera and I did a bunch of cutting. I took all of the different cardstock colors that come in the kit and I cut them into strips. And I wasn't precise. I didn't have a specific width that I cut them to. I just kind of put it in my paper trimmer and just kind of kept pushing it through and cutting off various strips in various sizes. I left the piece of paper, the cardstocks, completely intact, so I didn't cut them down, so that I have strips that are going to completely cover the 11-inch width piece of cardstock when I add them on. And that's because we're going to create a couple of cards with the little striped piece that we're going to create here, and this is going to allow me to have a bunch of area to die cut from. So what I'm going to do is I took the white cardstock that comes in the kit as well, and I completely covered the bottom portion of that with adhesive. So you can see there I added a ton of adhesive on there, and that just is going to allow me to be able to add these strips of cardstock on without having to add adhesive to each one as I go. So you can do it either way. You can either do it like I did here and add the adhesive directly to the cardstock in the back, or you can just add the adhesive to each of the strips if you prefer to do it that way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly select strips of cardstock that I've cut out here, and I'm just going to keep adding them to this cardstock piece. And this is just going to kind of create a rainbow panel that I'm going to be able to die cut from once I have it finished. And I'm not doing any kind of specific pattern. I'm not kind of following and keeping the colors consistent. I'm just kind of grabbing whatever colors I feel like should go next, just to making sure that I'm using a nice assortment of all the different colors. And I just continually go up until I have this whole entire area filled. And then once I do have all of the strips on here, it's going to leave me with this really great panel that's completely flat because we're just layering all of the strips side by side. And it's going to allow me to be able to die cut from it using the U Trio dies from the card kit. I'm also going to use the Blueprints 29 dies to use the rectangle die in that set to create some panels that we're going to use for our card designs. So I'm just wrapping up here. I'm just adding the last strip on here now, and then I'm going to go ahead and trim this down so that I just have just the panel, and then that way I'm able to run this through my die cutting machine with the various dies. And like I said, I love how smooth it all is. It completely looks like a piece of pattern paper, and we simply did that just by adding all of the cardstock pieces. So now I'm going to trim this down to prepare it for my 3 different card designs, and then I'll bring everything back here and we can start to assemble the cards. So now you can see I have one panel that is cut out, so I have a full panel of the stripe design, and I cut it on a diagonal, which kind of looks cool, but I was originally going to do it straight across, but when I adhered the strips, some of them didn't adhere perfectly straight across. So I knew when I tried to die cut a rectangle from that, you'd be able to see that some of the strips weren't completely straight, and I didn't want that to be visible on the card. So by cutting it on the diagonal, that allowed it to kind of, you wouldn't even notice that some of those aren't completely straight across the card. I also have a U cut out above there from the U die-namics, and then I have another panel here that I'm just going to use as a backer piece. So first things first, I'm going to start to assemble one of the cards here. I have a white cardstock panel that was cut from that rectangle from the Blueprints 29. And I just took it to my die cutting machine and cut the U from the center of it. And I'm not going to use those white letters for this card. I'm just going to go ahead and remove those, but I am going to keep the center of the O so that I can add that back into the card. Now the plan for this one is I want the white panel on the top to be lifted off of that striped pattern paper with foam adhesive, because I want kind of a dimensional shadow effect with the word kind of underneath there. So I'm just trimming down this panel because it's only going to be seen through the letter, so it doesn't matter how perfect it is, it just needs to be smaller than the panel. And I'm going to adhere this right onto the card front. Then I'm just going to take the panel there and I'm going to add a bunch of foam adhesive all the way around this whole piece here. And then I'm going to layer this right over top of that stripe piece. So this is going to give us a nice fun design where we have that stripe detail underneath within the U word, but we have the really fun shadow and dimension because we put the panel on with some foam adhesive. Now for the second card, I decided to do this one on a portrait scale, so I'm doing the same thing. I cut the U out of the panel once again, but this time rather than a landscape card, I left it with the vertical, and I'm just adding adhesive completely to the back of this because this one we're going to adhere flat onto the card and do die cut inlay. So I added adhesive to the back of the panel, and then I also added it underneath the area where the U is because I want to be able to add letters back in, and that's going to allow them to stick into place. Now, I never really thought when I did this that I could have not had the separate U cutout that I did here. I could have just used the U that I'm going to end up cutting from the panel of cardstock when we get to that one, but I never thought of that at the time. So I did cut out the U separately, and I'm just adhering this into the openings here just like a puzzle. And then when I finish that, I'm going to put the center of the U back in from the little white die cut U that I have up at the top there, just so that I have everything flat and we don't have any parts that are kind of not as dimensional as others. So by adding that last little piece in there, I have this perfectly smooth, flat card with the U sentiment in the front. So for one, it's flat and completely one layer, and then for the first one I did there, we have the dimension with the panel kind of raised off the card. So now for the last card, we're going to use the big panel that we cut out from the striped design that we created. And for this one here, I'm going to die cut the word U from the panel. And I'm just going to kind of figure out here where I want it. I decided to put it down at the bottom and have it run the same direction as the diagonal strips that we added. And then I'm just going to adhere this piece directly onto my card front. And then once again, I also added adhesive underneath the area where the U is, because even though I'm going to leave this white, I want to add the white letters back in rather than just having the white showing through from underneath. So I'm adding the pieces all back in, and then I'm going to take the little striped piece center of the U or the O from when I had die cut the word out, and I'm just going to put that back into the middle area. So now that I have all the die cutting done and I have all my striped panel pieces created, now I'm going to use the sentiments that kind of go with everything and add some secondary sentiments onto the cards. So for the very first card, I just stamped it directly onto the card front, and then for the second two, I decided to do it on a banner. So I cut out 2 strips of white cardstock and I stamped directly onto those, and for the U up there, I decided to adhere that one directly over the word U. And then for this one here, I was very undecided. I could not figure out where I wanted this white strip, and then I decided I didn't want it to even be on a white strip. I thought it looked better stamped directly onto the colored cardstock. So rather than using that strip there, I just stamped directly underneath of that word. And then that is going to complete all the stamping and die cutting, and I'm just going to finish them off by adding some silver stickles and some clear sequins to a couple of those cards and leave the other one completely plain. So now we have this great trio of cards with a fun rainbow design. So as always, if you would like a chance to win a gift card to the MFT online store, please leave a comment on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I will announce the winner in next week's episode of MFTv. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in the next one.